Just found this pallet on the side of the road. It looks like it's really nice wood. Let's take it and see. Like a glove. Look at that. Perfect fit. This is definitely one of the nicest pallets I've seen in the wild. So my goal is to turn this free pallet into as high value of an item as I can, and then sell it for as much money as possible, while still maintaining a good profit margin. So if I turn it into something that I can sell for $500, but I have to spend $450 in materials, that's not really a success in my book. But first things first, let's take this thing apart. All right, one down. All right, two down, getting faster. All right, guess we're finishing this on the floor. Danger of working on sawhorses. Lovely. Whew. So disassembling that pallet took 30 minutes. I'm keeping track of all the time I spent on this project so I can do a final accounting at the end. I'm still not sure of the wood species, but I think we'll be able to figure that out as we start to clean these up. Next step, a lot of these boards have a lot of dirt on them, like this one, and I want to clean that off. This is just a wire brush, and I'm wearing a dust mask in case this is dangerous dirt. Oh, these are looking so cool. I don't want to speak too soon, but some of it looks kind of like cedar. All right, I'm really excited to see what this wood looks like, so I'm gonna start sending boards through my planer. Okay, I'm very excited because I'm almost certain that this is in fact cedar. I wasn't sure at first, I thought it might be fir, but I left the garage and came back and it definitely smells like cedar in here. Okay, so we got this beautiful reclaimed cedar. What's the game plan? I really need to play to my strengths here. I don't think I'm the best person to make table legs, so what I'm thinking of doing is taking all of this pallet wood, gluing it up into one single beautiful slab, and then buying some legs to highlight that tabletop. I think I can get pretty nice table legs for like 50 bucks. So if we succeed with our original idea of selling this for a few $100s, that's still a very healthy profit margin. Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Let's start cutting. I don't have a jointer, so I'm just gonna use my table saw to get one flat edge. Hopefully we'll be good enough, then I can flip it around and get a second flat edge. Let's do this. So now we have this nice flat edge, but if we line all of our boards up, it's not very wide. This would only make a table 12.5 inches wide. So what I want to do is rip all of them in half widthwise and then double this width. That's going to give us a coffee table 25 inches wide by 39 inches long, you know, barring any extra that we cut off to get a nice clean edge. Finally, we got these two big boys to cut in half. These are so pretty, it almost looks like oak. Anyways, I'm a little nervous about this cut, and I'm gonna do it in 2 passes, one at half height, and then raise the blade all the way. Hopefully, my job site table saw can handle this. We'll find out very shortly. Ooh. Oh my God, this is so pretty. I want to use these for the ends. This is so nice. This one we might have to get rid of because it has the split in it. All these little book matched grain details are so cool. Check that out. I think we're ready to glue. So I'm gonna glue this in 2 sections, split it right at this book match in the middle. Wah! Big glue up to do. And the glue starts to set before you know it. 2, 3, never done a glue up this big before. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last one. Perfect. I'm also gonna have to push this guy down. There we go. Nice. That worked really well. Some of these guys just to pull it, add a little more pressure. Not gonna get a ton with these quick clamps, but it won't hurt. I really need more long F clamps. I thought 3 would be enough. I don't know why I thought that, but I don't know. I think we'll get a good joint. I don't see any gaps. All right, I'm happy with this. It's pretty flat. We'll be able to plane out any inconsistencies. Got some good squeeze out. Wipe off some of that squeeze out before it dries. All right, it's been about an hour, so the glue should be dry. Oh, beautiful. Wow, this thing is not light. This is gonna be a nice coffee table. All right, let's get it. Got some good squeeze out on that one. Now that we got both halves glued up, we're ready to plane them down flat. I am very excited for this step. Little nervous, this is definitely the biggest piece of wood I've ever planed, but we're taking a very shallow pass to start, so I think it should be okay. Oh, wow. Okay, that was a bit more aggressive of a pass than I planned on, but that looks really good. That is super smooth. All right, let's plane the other one. I'm gonna be a little more conservative on the next pass. I didn't know if it was gonna make it on that one, but we did it. All right, I think that's good for planing. They're the same thickness, they're flat. I can finish it up with a random orbit sander, so let's glue these babies together. So I just set these up for a dry fit, and I'm happy that I did because I found out that the mating face between these is not flat. You can see it from this angle when I push them together. It's tight together in the middle, but then there's a gap on either end. Now, if I had a jointer, this would be an easy fix. I could just run the mating faces over the jointer, get a perfect flat face, and I'd be good to go. I don't have a jointer, but I do have a table saw, and the opposite edges are flat. So what I'm gonna do is take a super shallow pass on the table saw along the mating edges. I'm gonna do the same on both sides so I maintain a nice book matching, and hopefully that will give me 2 flat edges that I can glue together. Let's find out. All right, let's see if that worked. It's not perfect, but it's better. It's manageable. Let's glue this baby up. Oh yeah, getting squeeze out on both sides, which is what you love to see. I have to little by little tighten these and close that gap. Having some more F-clamps or pipe clamps would be definitely useful here, but clamps are expensive and this is what I have. All right, I think that is good. Oh, beautiful, look at that. Woo, that is bulky. All right, Time to sand. Whew. All right, after about 45 minutes, got this baby sanded up to 220 grit. It's super smooth. Now it's time to trim the ends. All right, let's hope this works. Is the circular saw powerful enough? All right, maybe it's the battery. So my cordless circular saw was having a lot of trouble on that cut, and I think it's because of these little old 1.3 amp hour batteries. So I bought some bigger ones. These are 4 amp hours, high performance Ryobi batteries. Let's see how they do. Oh my God, it's like night and day. That was so much better. I've had these batteries for probably 3 or 4 years. I've had these little batteries that came with my drill driver set. I cannot believe it took until now for me to get a new battery. We have a couple of small voids here, and I'm just gonna fill those with this Alumilite Amazing Clear Cast epoxy resin. So you just mix it 1 to 1. It's a bit tough to get this to flow into the crack, but luckily this stuff has a 30-minute working time, so there's not really any rush. Ooh, that was bold. There's a couple other small cracks that I'm just filling up with resin. Might as well make this thing as nice as I can. I'm not really looking forward to the sanding that I'm gonna have to do of this, but it'll be worth it. Grab my blowtorch, get these bubbles out. After 2 days, the epoxy is fully cured, so time for another round of sanding. I also sealed some cracks on the end of the table with epoxy, so we gotta sand that off as well. Oh my God, safety glasses were hiding in there. Now comes the part of the project that I have been the most excited for the whole time I've been working on this. I think it's really gonna take this table to the next level. I'm gonna use a chamfer bit in my router to add a bevel along the top and bottom edges. I think this is gonna look so cool. I'm a little nervous though, so I'm gonna start on the bottom. I don't know why I put on safety glasses just to flip this. Ugh. But it is heavy. Steady hands. Yes. Oh, that looks so good. Because there's a little bit of unevenness in the bottom, it also evens everything up really nice. We'll get a beautiful shadow line. Whew, love it. For the top edge, I increased the depth of my router bit because I want a more dramatic chamfer. And now that I have some practice on the bottom, I feel more confident doing a deeper chamfer. Let's do this. Oh my gosh, I'm absolutely covered in chips, but this thing looks amazing. I'm so excited. I'm gonna go clean myself off, and I think this baby is ready for finish. So I know at the beginning of this video, I said I could get some nice table legs for around 50 bucks. There were some pretty nice coffee table legs for $50 on Amazon, but the right table legs, the ones that really show off the beauty of this table, were a little more expensive. That was a close one. Oh, these look so good. Yes, this was the right choice. So these beauties were $126 after tax, but I think it was worth it. Let's put them on. So with that, the coffee table is finished, and now it's time to actually sell this thing. I'm a little nervous because I don't have a buyer lined up. We actually have to market this table, but I had an idea. There's a really nice art gallery right down the street from me, so I went inside and asked them if I could take some photos of the coffee table inside. And they said yes, which is huge. Having some good photos of this table in a nice setting will help bring out its natural, beautiful characteristics and help us actually get a good price for this thing. Shout out to Robert's Gallery. I super appreciate it. We actually might be doing a project with them now in the future. So talk to your local business owners. You might make some good connections. So with the time it took to take those photos, that brings the total time spent on this project to 7 hours and 40 minutes. I assume it'll take another 20 minutes or so to actually write the text posts. So let's call this an even 8 hours spent on this table. So my original goal was to pay myself $100 an hour for the time I spent working on this table. To do that, taking into account our material costs, the table legs, the glue and the finish only added about $8, we would have to sell this table for $934.55. Some people might spend that amount of money on this table. I think it's really nice, but I don't know if it's worth $934. I don't know, some people might pay that, but for a list price, I think that $600 will make it much more likely that we'll actually make the sale. That comes out to $58 an hour for my time spent on this project, which I'm still happy with, but now we actually have to list it and see if anyone will buy it. Okay, so I posted the table to Instagram, my neighborhood Facebook page, and Facebook Marketplace. Here's what it says. For sale, solid wood coffee table, handmade from a pallet found on the streets of the Annex. That's my neighborhood. The table is 39 inches long, 23 inches wide, and 18 inches tall. Always important to give dimensions. The tabletop is 1 3/4 inch thick. The wood appears to be a mixture of domestic hardwoods. Now, I know I said earlier in the video that I thought this was cedar, but in talking to some of my woodworking friends, we actually think it's more likely that this is actually hardwood, which is awesome. The pallet that birthed this table had a Lactalis Canada stamp, implying that it was produced domestically and used in the Canadian dairy industry. Featuring book-matched grain details, chamfered edges, and steel legs, price $600, local delivery is available. Ever since I made the post, I've been really nervous that it's not gonna sell. It's expensive. I don't know if I would spend $600 on a table, and I judge my own work. I'm insecure about it. But I just got my first hit. Talia said, "Hi Morley, would you deliver to beep?" I'm not gonna say your neighborhood. "I love the table and will show my partner." Hi Talia, yes, of course I will deliver there. Ask your partner. Are we gonna sell it to Talia? I'm so excited. And this came through the neighborhood Facebook group, which I was most optimistic about my chances of selling it there. So Talia checked with her partner and the $600 price tag was just too expensive for them. She was really nice about it. She didn't try to lowball me, but we were just in wildly different categories. So it's looking like it's not gonna happen. And then I wasn't getting any hits for a few days and I was feeling a little down. Is this thing actually gonna even sell? But then today, I got a message from Michaela, who also saw the coffee table on the neighborhood Facebook page, and she really wants it. So she's gonna come by tonight, and I think we're gonna make the sale. Fingers crossed. Yeah, so I found the pallet just near Fiesta Farm.
Oh, that's so cool. We were both saying, like, I just wish I was crafty and handy like that.
This is where I actually built it.
Are you happy with it? Is what you thought it would be?
Yeah.
I saw it a couple days ago on one of the Facebook groups, and I was like, "This is so cool."
Yeah.
And I didn't even think to like do anything. And then she saw something else on Facebook today, and I was like,
Yeah.
"I saw this really cool table."
Yeah.
Oh wow.
She's like, "We should buy it." Like
Yeah.
we're moving to New York in a couple months. We want to bring something from like this
Yeah,
neighborhood.
nice Toronto stuff. Like
Yeah.
that,
So this would be a good,
Yeah.
cool thing to like keep with us.
That's
and
awesome.
It's a good size that it's not too big because I'm sure wherever we'll be on
Small.
the smaller side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was hoping that someone would want it for that reason.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's
With the
exactly
story?
what we wanted. Yeah, I like the.
It's Canadian wood, for sure.
Exactly, and handmade. It seemed like no one else has one. It's neat.
Yeah, this is perfect, right?
Very
Cool.
It's gonna come to New York with us.
That's so great to hear. Okay, thank you. I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
So Michaela and her husband bought the table. They're gonna bring it with them to New York, which is so cool. Michaela negotiated down to $550, which I'm still very happy with. That leaves me with a final hourly rate of $52 an hour. I found it really interesting that Michaela and her husband both saw the table posted on Facebook on their own multiple days apart. So that really speaks to the power of posting something over time in many different places. So I'm on my way to pick up a free pallet that I found on Facebook Marketplace. It looked pretty nice in the photos, but you never know with these things. Fingers crossed it's a good one.
Good, how are you?
Good. Is this what you were looking for?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what did it come with?
I think we got like many bags of like molds.
Oh, okay.
Soil.
Thank
Alright,
you.
well, good luck.
Thanks a lot. Oh, it just fits. RIP the interior of my car.
So picking up that pallet took 40 minutes. I'm keeping track of all of the time I spent on this project, so at the end when I sell it, I can figure out how much I made per hour. But first things first, we gotta take this thing apart. Since a lot of these ends are already split, I think I'm just gonna run my circular saw along the ends, and then I have to take all of these nails out the middle. Let's do it. All right, one down. Oh my God, there were so many nails in there. There's actually still some more nails to take out, but I had to stop early because I have to go move my car. So I got good news and bad news. The bad news is that about half of these boards are a really junky softwood. A lot of them cracked, the nails pulled right through. But the good news is that the other half of these boards are a very dense hardwood, including these two big beams. This one still has some nails in it, but as I mentioned, I have to go move my car in about 3 minutes. It's funny, the difference between hardwood and softwood is so obvious when they're in the same pallet. The nails were pulling right through these ones. The boards were cracking super easily, but these guys did not dent. It was really hard pulling the nails out, and I still have a bunch more to pull out, but I think it's gonna be worth it. Anyways, for now, gotta go move my car, and tomorrow, I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna make out of this stuff. All right, it's a new day, got a good night's sleep, a filling breakfast. Let's get the rest of these nails out. So after another 40 minutes of work, I got all of the nails out except for one. The head snapped off, I tried to hammer it all the way through, and it just wasn't coming through the other side. It's annoying, but I think I have a plan. Hopefully it will work. But for now, I want to plane a little bit off the face of these boards so we can see the beautiful wood that lies underneath. Let's go see. So I'm gonna start with a super shallow pass to remove a tiny bit of wood so we can reveal what the wood is underneath all this grime. Let's see. Oh my gosh. Check out the grain on this. This wood is beautiful. So here is the total wood haul from the pallet. We got 4 wide boards, 4 slats, and 2 of these big beams. You can see back there in the trash, all of the pine boards that I threw out. And from that first planing, this wood looks really nice. Like, check out this grain. It's so pretty. So if I stack all of these pieces together, it makes 10 inches of height. The shortest pieces are 42 inches long. And at this point, I'm thinking of doing similar to my last pallet project. That is ripping these pieces in half to get some extra width and then gluing them together into a beautiful slab. Now, the exciting thing about this pallet is that we have these extra wide pieces. These ones are 5 3/4 inches wide, and everything else is 3 3/4 inch wide. So 3 3/4 divided by 2, 1.875 minus 0.125 for the curve. That gives us 1 3/4 inch of thickness if we rip these in half. Now for the wide ones, if we rip those pieces into thirds, 1 2/3 inch. So at the end of the day, I feel like we can end up with an 1.5 inch thick tabletop. 1.5 inches is nothing to sneeze at. Let's start ripping these down. So now it is time to rip these big boys in half. And like you already know, there's at least one nail still in these. So here's the game plan. I switched out my nice finish blade for the construction grade blade that came with this saw, and I'm gonna just cut right through the nail. This might sound like a bad idea. It's definitely gonna dull the blade, but I'm confident that the blade should be able to cut right through it. So I'm starting with the board that doesn't have a nail in it, at least I don't think it does, just for practice. And then we'll move on to the other one, which has the nail still inside. Now I'll flip this over and go through the other side. All right, time for the one with the nail. All right, I don't know if you saw it, but there was definitely a little spark there. And there is our nail. So the saw got through it no problem. And what are stock table saw blades for, if not cutting through nails? All right, that looks awesome. This wood is so beautiful. Like, look at this grain. This is unreal. Now that we have one flat edge on all these boards, I'm gonna rip them all to the same width and put a flat edge on the other side. So there are all of our boards resawn to the same width. This wood is so beautiful. I'm so excited to put finish on. We're almost ready to glue this into a slab, but first, these dirty faces won't make for a very good glue joint. So I wanna run all the boards through the planer this way, just take a tiny bit off again to get a nice, clean, flat face for gluing. Let's do it. All right, it's a new day and a lot has happened. Let me bring you up to speed. So last night I was thinking about the last pallet table that I made. I built that entire table start to finish before finding a buyer. Luckily, I did find a buyer. I sold the table to Michaela and her husband for $550. But I was thinking, what if I just make a post on Instagram that I'm working on another table, and if anyone is interested in buying it in advance, to just send me a message. That way they can customize it, they can get the table that they want rather than me designing something on spec. And it worked. Mackenzie reached out to me. She was super interested in getting this table made into a desk. We traded some ideas back and forth and locked it in. This table will be a desk for Mackenzie. She's in Toronto. It's absolutely perfect. She wants exactly the look that this pallet wood provides. I'm so excited. I cannot believe how well this worked out. So I think we're ready to glue this baby up. Let's get to it. So I spent some time arranging all the pieces. I think that this layout is gonna look super good, and I'm gonna split the glue up in half so that I can fit the two halves through my planer. So I'll glue these ones up first, then these ones, and then glue them together. So I was kind of hoping to leave these nails embedded in the wood, but I really don't want to send these through my planers. I think they would damage the blades, so I think we got to hammer these through. So that big hole is from when we originally tried to hammer that nail through with a nail set. That was when this was still in one piece. And now that nail is somewhere in the middle, but it should be well out of the range of the planer. So we should be okay leaving that in there. And then just the tip of this is now sticking through. That's definitely progress. Let me show you what this looks like now. So that's a fair amount of protrusion. I think we might be able to get that out with pliers. All right, so we just snapped off the tip. So yeah, we'll just hammer it back inside and it'll be embedded in there, out of range of the planer blades. There we go. Out of sight, out of mind. Let's plane these bad boys. By the way, I don't run these at the same time because I'm pretty sure I would blow the circuit breaker, and I don't have access to it in my apartment, so I'd have to call my neighbor and ask them to reset it.
Now give me the beat.
Oh, the grain on this is so cool. I think we're ready to glue these two halves together. So I want to fill some of these knot holes with clear epoxy, but first I have to fix a mistake. There is what looks to be a big gap between these two boards. What it actually is one of these boards is actually tapered towards the top. I should have caught this before the glue up and flipped it over and glued the other flat side, but this board was probably on the edge of the pallet. It had a really worn edge, and so when you look from the top, it looks like a big, ugly gap. And if we were to fill this knot hole with epoxy right now, all of that epoxy would flow into that crack, which we don't really need to do. So before doing the epoxy, I'm just gonna fill that crack with sawdust and wood glue. But before we do that, I need some sawdust. Time to sand. So there's the knot hole that I want to fill with epoxy. So just on either side, I'm going to fill the crack with this glue and sawdust mixture. I'm realizing now that some of the epoxy might flow under this as well, but hopefully this will at least reduce the amount of epoxy we have to use to top up this crack. So the glue and sawdust started doing this as I was sanding it, which tells me that it's not fully dry. So I'm gonna stop sanding for now and switch gears to filling the knot holes with epoxy, then we can just sand everything after that's all cured. So I'm filling the knot holes with Alumilite Amazing Clear Cast Epoxy Resin. You just mix up equal parts of the A and B. So I'm only adding a small amount of epoxy to start, just to seal the knot holes so that it doesn't all bleed right through the wood. Then once this cures, I'll come back with a second coat and fill it up all the way. Just need a little bit. So the epoxy has been curing for about a day, and what I was afraid might happen, happened. So pretty much all of the epoxy in the knot hole next to the crack ended up flowing into the crack itself. We coated the inside of the knot hole, which is good, but if we pour any more epoxy in there, it's just gonna continue flowing into the crack. So instead of adding more and more epoxy and just waiting to fill up the crack, I'm gonna seal the bottom of this knot hole with CA glue so we can be sure that this next coat of epoxy will be the final one. So I think that's good there. So this activator will force a set. All right, hopefully I won't see the level of epoxy go down in this knot hole at all. The bottom should be fully sealed now. These big knot holes are gonna look so cool with clear epoxy in them. All right, the epoxy is stable. Get the bubbles out. 24 hours later, the epoxy is all cured. Time to sand. So I got this baby sanded up to 80 grit, and now I want to trim the ends at 90 degrees. I laid down some masking tape to prevent chip out. Let's do this. Ooh. Good thing this wood is really hard or that would have dented. We're almost ready to put on the finishing touches, but first, more sanding. Oh yeah, that should be plenty of sawdust to fill the rest of the cracks and the nail holes on the tabletop. You already know what I'm gonna say. More sanding. So I got this sanded up to 220 grit. It's looking amazing. And now I want to bevel the edges. Mackenzie and I both really want to preserve this December 2019 embossing on the front face. It's from the original palette. It just looks really cool. But as you can see, it goes right up to the top edge. So if I do too heavy of a bevel on the top, I'm gonna hide some of that embossing. However, I do have a lot more room on the bottom, so I think I'm gonna do a dramatic chamfer on the bottom edge and then a more subtle chamfer on the top. Let's do it. Ooh, that looks clean. I love it. Beautiful. There we go. Knocks off the sharp corner, but still reveals the 12-2019. We're now ready for one of my favorite parts of every woodworking project, raising the grain. All this really is wetting the wood so that you can sand off the fuzzies, but for the first time, it reveals the natural beauty of the wood. Let's do this. Oh shoot, I just poured a bunch of water on my foot. Good thing there weren't any electronics down there. I cleaned off all the dust with a rag soaked in mineral spirits, and we are finally ready for finish. I'm gonna be finishing this with TotalBoat Halcyon Clear. This is a rugged clear varnish. Full disclosure, this was sent to me by TotalBoat, but I'll be including the full retail price in the final cost breakdown at the end of this video. I'm super excited to see how this stuff looks, so let's get to it. So I actually moved the tabletop inside to avoid any dust floating around the garage getting caught in the wet finish. So I have the Halcyon finish in gloss and satin. I ultimately want a satin finish, but TotalBoat recommends doing the first few coats in gloss and then finishing up with the satin. Let's do it. So I ended up doing 3 coats of the gloss, giving it a light sanding with 220 grit, and then finishing up with 2 coats of the satin. And this thing looks incredible. I'm so happy I went with the satin finish. I feel like gloss wood tabletops can look a little tacky, and the satin finish just looks so classy. This thing is super smooth. Very happy with the Halcyon finish. Again, there will be a link in the description for that. And we're now ready for the final step of this build, putting on the legs. You might have noticed these guys behind me for about half of the video. Mackenzie and I decided on these gold metal legs to match the decor of her home. I got them for about $120 on Amazon, and I think they're gonna look so awesome with this tabletop. Let's put them on. It is Saturday, August 13th, 2022. We're on our way to drop off the table, or the desk, to Mackenzie.
There it is. Carlos never fails.
Oh, that's Mackenzie.
Definitely not a woman.
Good to see you. Yeah, just barely fits. Oh, necessary. Here we go. Yeah. So here's the embossing in the front.
Beautiful. It looks so much better than the first one. The first one I thought was amazing.
Thank you. One big change from the first was that I used a new finish. It's like it's a marine varnish. The other one was a polyurethane, which is nice, but I think this one is like legitimately a nicer finish. I think this wood is also harder than the last wood. Like getting the you'll see in the video, getting the nails out was like, it took me like 3 times as long as the last one. There you go. Uh-oh. Whoops.
All right.
This one right here? Wow, that is an amazing view. I don't know where you want it, but I'll just put it.
I'm not sure yet either. One of the two walls.
That's awesome.
So I'm going for like an eco shoot kind of look. So plant an embarrassing amount of plants.
Nice.
Woods, things like that.
So I have something I need to tell you.
Oh.
I fully assumed from your name that you were female.
I figured a lot of people do. Technically, 52% of Mackenzies are female now, which is we're losing the battle.
Oh no. So in the video, I do say she multiple times. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
All right, should we see if there's any super glue? I don't want to leave you a broken.
Yeah, I saw it.
Did you get the shot of me breaking it?
I think so. And then I like immediately stopped filming. I was like, oh no, they can't know that you're not perfect.
No, that's the point.
How are we doing?
We're good. So if it comes off, just let me know and I'll 3D print you a new one and I'll just put it back on. Because it's just it's an easy plastic piece.
True.
I'm gonna try to finish the video up today.
Oh, really?
And maybe get it posted tonight, but if not, it'll be tomorrow.
That is a quick turnaround. Is there anything you need?
Yeah, we'll get out of your hair. Thank you so much again.
And you owe a chance to do more money for it.
All good. So it took 40 minutes to deliver the desk to Mackenzie, bringing the total time spent on this build to an even 12 hours. Now for our material costs, the legs cost $135.59 after task. We used $22.60 worth of the Halcyon finish. I weighed the pouches before and after using them. About $9 worth of glue, $3 worth of epoxy, bringing the total material cost of this project to $170.23. When Mackenzie locked down the project, we agreed on a purchase price of $1,000. I just checked my phone and he ended up transferring me $1,200. I texted him this was not a mistake. He liked the table so much that he decided to pay $200 extra. He is such a kind and generous person. Thank you so much, Mackenzie. I appreciate it so much. So taking all of that into account, we ended up making $85.81 on this project, which I am very happy with. So I was browsing Facebook Marketplace this morning and I found some pallets that a guy's giving away for free. So we're gonna go check it out and see if there's some good ones. Quite the quantity, but is there any quality? First glance, most of these look like pine. I don't know if there's any good ones in here. Ooh, this one. Oh, why are all the best ones on the bottom? That might be hardwood. That's a maybe. That's a definite no. 100% pine, no. Now this one, that is a definite no. That looks like pine as well. Okay, so 2 out of 20. Although this one, nice. Oh yeah, a lot of color in those slats. I think this might be hardwood. Well, these are a bit too wide to fit in the back of my car. I'm glad I brought the hacksaw. There we go, 3 pallets fit in the back of the Hyundai Accent just by cutting one of the runners off. Let's take these apart. So here is our haul from those 3 pallets. We also had the stringers. I didn't bother taking the nails out of those, at least not yet, because the project I have planned only requires the slats. Plus, it is so difficult to pull all the twisted nails out of hardwood runners. So rather than put in a bunch of unnecessary work, I'll just do that later if I need to. But for now, Let's play in these bad boys. Whew. This looks so good. So the thing with pallet wood is the edges are never straight. So next up, we're gonna put one flat edge on every board. Earlier this year, I made a coffee table with a tessellated triangle pattern. And it looks so cool. I was so happy with that piece, and I really want to continue exploring patterns in furniture. So I set up my table saw to cut every single one of these into a diamond. I think this is going to make a very cool piece of furniture. So you've probably seen this pattern before, and it looks best if you have 3 pieces of slightly different color. So if you arrange these diamonds in a hexagon, you get what looks like a 3D cube. And with those 3 colors, you have this cool 3D shading effect. So ideally, I want to take all of these, and I have 2 more buckets, and split them into 3 color categories. So I got some 3/4 inch Baltic birch plywood to use as the base. I designed this 3D printed jig so we can space the diamonds evenly. Use a bit of super glue, spray some activator on here. I designed a bit of tolerance into the jig so I can actually remove it once they're all glued down, but that means I have to be really careful that I keep my alignment or else these pieces are gonna look all squirrely. I want to fill the space in between the diamonds with resin, and I added some plywood pieces to get a uniform border all the way around. And then to hold the resin in, I'm going to use this hard maple to create a border. This will kind of be like an integral mold and also give us a really nice, clean perimeter all the way around the desk. Now that we got the frame all built, we can start filling this with epoxy. I'm gonna start with a very thin seal coat using TotalBoat penetrating epoxy. This will fill up, I'm hoping, all the little gaps between the hard maple border and the plywood base. But to minimize the amount of epoxy just leaking right through this thing, I sealed up some of the bigger gaps with hot glue. I know that we're gonna get a little bit of leakage, but I'm hoping it's kept to a minimum. The epoxy has been curing for a few days and it looks like we have no major leaks. So we can start filling this thing up with TotalBoat Thickset Fathom. This is an ultra deep pour clear casting resin. You can pour this in layers of up to 3 inches deep. We're not gonna come anywhere near that, but we will easily be able to fill this entire thing up in one go without getting any excess heat buildup. Oh my God, that's incredible. I did not expect that we would pour the exact right amount of epoxy in the first try. I thought I might have to mix up a little more. We would have a bit of an overflow. You can tell it's a bit off level because it's a little shallower over there. So I think if I just shim under this corner a little bit, lift this up slightly, hopefully that causes the epoxy to slowly flow down into that corner. But because this has such a long working time, we should be able to come back in like an hour and see if it's leveled out a little bit, and if not, we can always adjust.
One eternity later.
So Thickset Fathom takes 5 to 10 days to cure. But right after pouring this, I went to England. Then I had to finish another project. So this has been curing for about 3 weeks, and it is rock hard. Let's flatten this thing. Oh my God, that is dusty work. This dust collection barely did anything. There's just too many chips. Woo! Check it out. It's funny, I say the bucket dust collector didn't do anything, but I just opened it up. Yep. I think it caught some of the chips. We have some exposed knot holes with little gaps, but we can easily fill those with CA glue and then just sand off the residue. I am really not looking forward to sanding this giant surface, but sometimes you gotta just do it! Man, it's taking way too long to sand the bottom. There's just all the little inconsistencies between the border and the plywood and the pieces of plywood that we glued on. I think we can cut down a ton of sanding time if we just throw this on the router sled.
Now give me the beat.
Oh my gosh, literally one pass on the router sled and we got a perfectly flat bottom surface. It's not pretty because we dipped into the second veneer, but the most important thing for this bottom surface is that it feels smooth when you reach underneath. I should have just used this thing from the beginning. I stand by it. The router sled is an absolute game changer of a tool. I'll have a link for this one in the description. All right, guess we gotta go back to sanding. I spent so long trying to figure out what legs I want to make for this desk. I thought about making pallet wood legs to stay true to the pallet wood top, but honestly, I think most people buying a big, high quality desk like this, they just want one thing. A nice motorized standing desk frame. All right, moment of truth. Let's go! Woo! It took me a bit longer than normal to do all the marketing for this desk because I wanted to show video of the desk going up and down as well as some nice photos. So of course I had to edit those videos. That whole process took about 90 minutes and I posted the desk for sale on my Instagram page and YouTube community. But the person who buys this might not even see it through those posts because I also made a short form video. I've been getting so many views on my Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, TikToks, and YouTube Shorts recently that it felt like a great way to get some eyeballs on this desk. Just a quick build overview, the story of building it, and a call to action at the end. You know, this desk is for sale. If you're in the Greater Toronto area and you want to buy it, send me a message because once again, I am not interested in shipping something this big. I would so much rather sell it locally, be able to deliver it to the buyer. And so far, I've been getting great response to this desk. People seem to really like it, but that's not the same thing as buying it. So fingers crossed, all we can do now is wait. The Diamond Desk is still available. This is a big desktop on a motorized sit-stand desk frame. It's 2,000 Canadian dollars or about 1,500 US, but I totally understand that that's a lot of money. So if you really want this thing, if you're located in the Greater Toronto area, make me an offer and let's negotiate. Within a few days of posting the desk for sale, I started getting some serious offers. One person in Seattle and another in the United Kingdom really wanted to buy it, but again, really trying to avoid shipping this thing internationally, so I said no to them. But then I got another message from someone on TikTok. This person was actually in the Greater Toronto area. They seemed like a serious buyer, so we started negotiating. But then I remembered something that a professional woodworker named David Shaw had told me. Every time he's done business with someone who negotiated really aggressively on price, he's ended up regretting it. They just didn't end up being good customers. He had a lot of problems with them down the line. And I was starting to get that feeling from this person on TikTok. In the end, they wouldn't budge by $50. So I walked away. And walking away from that was the right decision, but it definitely hurt. Especially since 2 days later, the table still wasn't selling, so I reduced the price by $300 and relisted it for sale. Now it was 1,700 Canadian or $1,270 US. And pretty soon after relisting the table, I got another message from that guy in Seattle. He understood my hesitation with shipping it internationally, but he really only wanted the desktop. So he offered me $1,000 US to ship it to his in-laws in Vancouver so he could drive across the border and pick it up. And the more I thought about it, the more this made sense. I got this standing desk frame on Amazon. I didn't have to ship that standing desk frame to Kelvin. I could return it, he could buy the exact same one and then put it on himself. It would be cheaper for him to do that. It's cheaper for me not to ship that big, heavy standing desk frame. It's a win-win. So I took my frame off, packed up the desk. Ironically, I was able to use the exact same shipping box that turned me off from international shipping originally. It's the one I used to ship the hexagon coffee table. That box is just a TV moving box from Home Depot. If you ever need to ship a big tabletop, those things work great. I wrapped the table in paper, then a foam blanket, covered the corners in bubble wrap, reinforced the box with rigid insulation. This thing is not going to get damaged in transit. At least I hope so. Shipping through UPS was 193 Canadian dollars or 142 US, but Kelvin was happy to cover that, so it doesn't need to go into our final cost breakdown. So let's talk about materials. The base of the desktop, that 18mm Baltic birch plywood, we used about 1/3 of a sheet, which is $48 or 35 US. The hard maple border, I don't know, I bought that a while ago. I'm gonna guess it's about $15 of hard maple. We used 1/3 of a gallon of penetrating epoxy. That's $57 Canadian or $42 American. And then a full gallon of TotalBoat thickset fathom. That's $158 Canadian. 1/3 of a can of Rubio Monocoat, that's about $40. Various consumables like sandpaper and paper towels, I'll throw in another $15. And then the standing desk frame, obviously we didn't end up using it. I'm just gonna return it to Amazon. That's $340 Canadian or 250 US. So the final price of all of our materials is $334 Canadian or 246 US. I sold the table to Kelvin for $1,000 US, which is about 1,360 Canadian. With 16 hours and 20 minutes into this project, that gives us a final hourly rate of $63 Canadian or $46 US. Honestly, not bad, pretty good. I think shipping just the tabletop gave us a higher hourly rate than if we were to deliver it, because the guy on TikTok was about 1 hour and 45 minutes away. That would have been 3 hours and 30 minutes of a drive to deliver this thing, whereas it only took 1 hour and 20 minutes to pack up this desktop and drop it off at UPS.
Nothing is impossible!
Oh boy, I'm moving tomorrow. I wonder how mad Eden would be if I reserve a spot on the moving truck for this. So I brought the car over, but this pallet is so big that it doesn't fit inside. So I knocked on their door. They're okay with me leaving it inside their fence until tomorrow when I have the U-Haul. Then I'll use that to pick it up. Oh, there it is. Okay. There it is. So I have a confession.
What happened? No, did you sell the table?
No, I got a pallet.
Morally.
It was perfect and it was on the way. I saw it yesterday. Eden, look, there's so much space in here. Look. I think we have plenty of room.
4 to 6 weeks later.
Let's take this thing apart. All right, one down. You can tell this is a hardwood pallet because number one, the wood is just clearly hardwood.
You can tell that it's an aspen tree because of the way it is.
But also just how difficult it is to get the nails out. If this was pine, I would just be cracking every single board before the nails even came out. Let's get all these nails out. So some of our pieces, like this one, cracked along the grain when we took apart the pallet, but no worries, we can just glue it back together and it should be plenty strong. Let's do it. Let's do some planing. Well, my bucket dust collector clearly can't keep up with the chip output from this thing, so we're just not going to use it. So here is the haul. Luckily, this entire pallet was made of this really cool hardwood. Some of this has super interesting grain that I definitely want to highlight in the final piece. And I think I have enough wood here to make a kitchen table. I want to make a circular kitchen table that's about 4 feet in diameter. And I think I have enough wood here to make the whole thing, including the legs. Let's start trimming up these pieces. So I I don't want to cut all of the slats into strips. Some of the pieces, like this one and this one, have really cool knots and grain patterns that I want to highlight on the tabletop. So I want to keep these ones whole, but the thing with pallet wood is that none of these slats have flat edges. So if we want to glue these edge to edge to make a tabletop, we need to flatten these first. Now, I don't have a jointer, so I made a super simple jointing jig for my table saw. This was so easy, and that should give us nice flat edges on these pieces. Let's do it. That worked so well. Table saw jointing jig, absolute game changer. Now that I have one flat edge on all these boards, I can put that edge against the fence to get a second flat edge on the table saw. Let's do it. So I spent some time arranging the boards, trying to get a nice variation of color across the table, and I ended up with this layout that I really like. I think this is gonna make such a beautiful dining table, but if we just glue these up and cut out a circle, we're gonna end up with a pretty thin table. So what I did was I used my circle jig with a router to cut a circle out of 3/4 inch plywood, and we're gonna use that as a base. That extra thickness will make the table feel more substantial and high quality, and definitely add some strength, which is never a bad thing. So I think at this point, we're ready for the glue up. But it's a little too cold outside for the glue to actually cure. So we're gonna move everything inside and do it in there. So we wanna glue this up in 12-inch sections so that we can fit each one through the planer. So that one's too wide. Ooh, this is actually gonna be a little tricky because of our divisions. I think we can get away with like 12.5. Yeah, we should be okay. Let's do that. So this will be 1. There's 2. Let's see, that one's, ooh, it's a little big. I don't want to sacrifice my layout, but this one is like 12.75 inch. You know what? We'll just glue this board on separately at the end. First glue up. Let's do it. Kind of starting to regret buying these super long pipes and no shorter ones, because this is just gonna tip that way. Oh, if I flip one around, it'll pull it the other way, and then it will be balanced. Duh. Oh, is the room wide enough? Because now we're hitting the counter on that side. Why did I get the longest possible pipes? Ow! Oh! Oh my gosh, this is annoying. You know what, if I rotate the whole thing, then I have more room this way. Oh my, okay, Jesus. Most chaotic glue up of all time. Oh, this is just part of the learning process. What am I doing? Let's move this. Oh. Okay, tilt that way. Okay, there we go. There we go. Now everyone's cooperating. Oh my God, these are so long. Don't hit the brand new expensive couch. There we go. That ought to be enough clamps. Beautiful. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, plus our single lonely board. Let's plane these bad boys. That looks awesome. Oh, this is gonna be so pretty. I think we're ready to glue these together. Let's do it. moment of truth. Woohoo! Check it out. That looks so good. So now we can flip this over. Grab our circle. Whoop. So, as you might have already noticed, our plywood circle is overhanging our slats ever so slightly on the edge. After jointing a bunch of these slats and gluing them together, they just ended up a little less wide than I expected. It's so slight, it's 1/8 of an inch on the edge. So before we do anything else, we gotta shave just a hair off this plywood circle. Let's do it. Whew. So I maxed out the cutting depth of this circle jig, so I'm gonna switch to a flush trim bit and finish this off. Let's do it. All right, moment of truth. Oh boy, this is heavy. Woo! That looks awesome. You already know what time it is. So the table's starting to look really nice, but at this point, I'm kind of stalled. I'm waiting for some supplies to arrive, and I can't really do anything else to the tabletop until they get here. So while we wait for those to arrive, we're gonna switch gears. Remember these guys? These are gonna be the legs. And these narrow edges are still really rough. So first things first, we're gonna clean those up on the jointing jig. Let's do it. This is gonna look awesome. So one of the supplies I was waiting on just arrived. This is a steam generator, and we're gonna use it to bend wood to make a border for the tabletop. But before we can do that, we need to make a steam box, so let's get to it. Boom, steam box. To actually make the border, I picked up this piece of oak. I read online that oak is really good for steam bending, plus I think this looks really nice. This is an 8-foot 1x4, and I'm gonna rip it in half. That should give us plenty of wood to make the full ring. Let's do it. So I have dowels in there to support the wood in the center of the chamber so that the steam can completely surround it. The steam generator's going, so we're gonna leave that for about an hour, and hopefully those pieces will be pliable enough to bend around the table. All right, the wood's been steaming for about an hour. Let's take it out and see how pliable it is. All right, is it bendy? Ooh, that's pretty bendy. All right, let's do this. Oh, this is big. All right. Oh my God, how am I gonna do this? I have no idea how time sensitive this is. Yes, okay. That side's not coming in at all though. This one, oh, I wonder if I can just take this off now. Oh boy, okay. Oh no. Okay. I think at this point, I'm gonna straighten this one out a little bit, throw it back in the steamer, and use the other one so it's as pliable as possible. And this time I'll make sure I'm ready before I start. Okay, let's get this guy back in there. All right, now I got my straps properly set up. Let's go get the other board, the one that is still nice and steamy. All right, there is our fresh board. In the straps on both ends. Pull this one. Oh, yes, there we go. Oh, no. Okay. Spoke too soon. I feel like a sailor rigging a ship. Dang it. I know we can do it. It's just hard to do this by yourself. I feel like we need a way to lock it in once we reach a certain point. Like, what do we do now that we're here? We can't rotate it. I guess, oh, I could drill, I could put some screws in here. Okay, it's resting against the screws. Great. Pull the slack in and then retighten it. So this is working. Oh, Jesus Christ. Ooh. Oh, I just snapped a screw. Oh my God. All right, it's starting to get dark, but I want to try one more thing before I pack it in for the night. I screwed a bunch of stops all the way around the table, which I'm pretty sure is the proper way you're actually supposed to steam bend, and hopefully that'll give us enough leverage to bend the piece all the way around. Now, the first piece that I'm trying has been back in the steamer for like half an hour, so it should be pliable again. I hope this works. Let's try it. All right, here's the first piece in the stop. Ooh, whole table's moving. There we go. Slowly, but surely. Okay, this is kind of working. Steam bending is a full body workout. I should have screwed this down first. Okay, 2 seconds. I'm gonna put this back in the steam box, screw this in from the bottom so it's not shifting around, then we'll try it once more. Take 2, or 4, or whatever this is. Oh, we just broke that piece. That one. Okay. Okay, that one broke too. I should have used plywood for these stoppers. Oh my God. Secondary lesson learned. These stoppers cannot be made from pine. These need to be like 2 screws plywood. I don't know, do I try it one more time? I'm gonna try to make the stoppers and we'll see if we have time to try one more. All right, so I replaced all the pine stoppers with plywood ones and put 2 screws in each of those, so hopefully now they won't just crack the moment force is applied. And I think we have enough light for one more try. I'm really hoping this works this time. Let's do it. Come on. One more stopper. Ah, yes. Okay, let's get the strap clamp on. There we go. That's pulling it in. Okay. I think that's as bent as that one's gonna get. We kind of did it. I'm just hoping we can bend the other one and piece them together. All right, kind of a success. So last night after I stopped filming, I added these 2 pipe clamps, and I'm really happy that I did. They evened out the curve and they restricted the ends, which is the most important part. So the second piece is steaming right now. Let's take this off and cross our fingers that it doesn't spring back too much. All right, here's the real moment of truth. Let's release the strap clamps. Ooh. Oh, dang. Okay, that is a lot more spring back than I was hoping for. I don't know, I'm thinking, like, it's still pretty flexible. So I'm hoping that when we like attach it to the table, we can bend it and glue it in place. But that's a little disappointing. I'm gonna put it in a pipe clamp and leave it there until we're ready for the glue up. That way we can at least keep a bit of a stronger curve on it. I'm feeling more optimistic. I think we're gonna be able to make this work. So this time I left the board in the steam box for a full 2 hours. Hopefully that'll make it more pliable and spring back less. I'm feeling good. Let's do this. So this piece has been in the clamps for a full 2 days. Let's take off the clamps and see how much it springs back. I feel like it's still gonna spring back a lot. Oh. Ooh. I don't know, maybe that's just like wishful thinking, but that seems better than the last one. Look at that, that is a nice, almost ring. All right, so we are ready to glue the first piece of bent oak onto the edge. I cut the ends at 45 so I can splice the two pieces together. I drilled holes every 6 inches. Hopefully that will pull this not quite circular curve into a circle. This is the second piece that I bent since it turned out better than the first, and I thought might as well start on a high note. I'm feeling optimistic. I think we're gonna be able to bend this in place with a screw every 6 inches. I think we're gonna be good. Nice, healthy amount of glue. Okay. Let's put a nice long 3-inch wood screw in there. Yeah, that works. Maybe I should just use my body here instead of this clamp. If I just push here, I can probably get, oh yeah, I can close the gap if I just pull into the table. There we go. Yeah, that does it. Okay, next lesson learned, using your body. This is gonna be so pretty. Lovely. All right, here's our second piece cut to length. This is from the first piece that we steam bent, and I can already tell it's not bent as tightly as the one we just attached. So I'm a little nervous, but I have a plan. We'll link it under the last one. All right, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Yes, clamps. That's why you start with the easy one. Ooh, this is a tight one. Getting some creaking. The problem I'm having is that I made my screw holes right in the middle of the oak, which was definitely a mistake because some of the screws are going right between the boards and they don't hold very strong. So I've been having to re-drill some of these holes. That was a stupid mistake. I'm so grateful that these screws are holding because there is a lot of pressure on them. All right, boom. So you probably noticed that we have a big old gap right here. That was on purpose because I didn't think I would be able to cut this piece to the exact length so that when I bent it around, it would match up perfectly right there. So I cut it short and then made this little keystone piece to fit right there. And because we cut it like this, I'm hoping that it will pull those two ends in if we screw it together correctly. Let's do it. So I want to start by pinning this in place in the middle. And I'm wondering if I put some screws on there, if that's going to pull it in, but I feel like we might be at the limit of this guy. I don't want to start splitting wood. At this point, this might be a job for wood filler and sanding, and this is the side that faces the wall. You live and you learn. So like I mentioned earlier, I want to highlight some of those knots. So instead of filling them with wood glue and sawdust, I'm gonna fill them with epoxy. I think just a few drops. Ooh, wow, that is effective. I mean, that is already like opaque. Well, I got my work cut out for me. So we're gonna be finishing this with TotalBoat Halcyon. This is a clear varnish, super easy to apply. Let's get to it.
Wow! Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
Now give me the beat.
This is the biggest, most difficult, most frustrating table I've ever built, but it was so worth it. This thing looks awesome. Oh, and by the way, I'm not selling this one. This table was for us. Gonna have lots of good meals on this thing. Woo! Oh, these are gonna be heavy. Oh boy. About $10,000 worth of battery components for our van, and all I have eyes for is this hardwood pallet. The question is, do I have time to make something out of this before we leave in the van in 7 weeks? You know what? I think we can turn this into a pretty sweet piece of furniture for the van. Let's take this thing apart. So after a surprisingly meditative half hour, I got all the nails out of the slats. Let's plane these bad boys. This might be the coolest pallet wood I have ever come across. A lot of it has this really cool pink hue. I have no idea what species of wood this is, so if you know, let me know in the description. I'm 90% sure it's hardwood, just because the grain is really tight and it's not very splintery. It's a lot heavier than a softwood pallet. I think this is gonna make a pretty sweet desk. To make my desk, I want to cut these slats into strips. Now, finding a flat edge on pallet wood is next to impossible, so I need to create a flat edge that I can reference. Now, I don't have a jointer, but I do have this jointing jig that I made for my table saw. This is super easy. All you need is a piece of scrap plywood, a little bit longer than your fence and 3 or 4 inches wide. You make a cut the width of the saw blade kerf, but stop before you get all the way through, and then flip that board around. That gives you a surface that you can press your board against and use the saw blade like the blades on a jointer. It's kind of hard to explain. I hope that makes more sense visually than it does coming out of my mouth. I followed a tutorial to make this. I'll link it in the description. So even though it might look like the next day, it's actually been about 2.5 weeks since I last touched this project. And you might be thinking, that's weird considering you have to move into the van in less than a month. But Eden and I had to take a bit of a break from building so we could get married And then once the wedding festivities were over, we really started feeling the crunch time on the build. So we switched gears to some of the more basic infrastructure projects. We put down our luxury vinyl plank flooring. I got back to work building out the inside of the cabinets. All right, moment of truth. Will 4 drawer slides align?
Oh boy.
Oh, they're all in.
Wow.
There we go.
Wow.
We got ourselves a pantry.
Wow.
And then, with only 3 weeks to go until move-in, we decided to take another break from building and go to the Catskill Mountain Maker Camp. Eden finished upholstering our cushions the day before we headed down to upstate New York, so we were actually able to sleep in the van with Abby and Penny, and it was a great test ride of what living in the van will be like, especially since we still have the opportunity to make a lot of changes. It was a bit stressful considering how much we have left to do, but I don't regret going. It was so much fun hanging out with the maker community, cooking out of the van, actually living inside of it for the first time and seeing, oh, we want to add a flip down water bowl holder, or an awning is really important when it rains for an entire day. It's also been so busy with the van build and the wedding planning that it was nice to have a little vacation right before crunch time, and I think it re-energized us for the next 3 weeks, which are gonna be wild. So enough talking, let's cut these pieces into strips. All right, so here is my haul. We lost a few pieces that were splintered or just too far gone to salvage, but I think this should be enough to make a comfortable sized desk. Let's stack them up and see. All right, so that should give us a desk that is 19.5 inches wide. And I don't know, to me, that feels plenty wide, especially for living in a van. So I might take away some of the less good pieces, like this short splintery one, and just make this as nice as possible. This one as well, not very good. I mean, that's still comfortably wide. Like I could have my laptop in there. So as much as I'd love to glue all these slats together, throw them on the router sled, and flatten the desk in one fell swoop, the table that I use with my router sled is currently a little cluttered with all the plywood for our van cabinets. It's also just being kind of like a general purpose workbench. I could clear it off, but you know, there's nothing wrong with a little basic tools project. So we're gonna do this the old-fashioned way. I'm going to split the slats into 2 separate glue-ups that can both fit through my planer. That way we can flatten them separately and then glue the 2 halves together and do the final finishing once this is one piece. Let's do it. These glued up panels are looking great. I love the variation of color. I spent a lot of time arranging the slats so I have a nice striping effect, and now I need to plane these down smooth and to the same thickness. I have to be careful though because these are already pretty thin. To get enough width to build a comfortable desktop, I had to rip each slat down to only 7/8 inch wide, and I don't want to go too much thinner than that for the tabletop. We are in a van, so limiting weight is a good thing, but if this is too thin, it won't feel very nice and you start to worry about strength. So my goal is to do just a few very light passes through the planer. It's easy to get carried away once your pieces start feeling smooth and close to finished, but we gotta keep that under control. Woo, check these out. Oh, this is gonna make such a beautiful desk. Now that I have my 2 halves planed to the same thickness, I want to glue them together. But as you can see, the mating edges don't line up in a straight line. There's a bit of rock to it, so I'm not gonna get a clean glue up if I just send it as is. Now, the best thing to do would be sending each mating face through a jointer, but as I mentioned earlier, I don't have one. I could use my jointing jig for the table saw, but I want to be a little more precise here, so I'm going to step outside of the beginner tools universe and use my track saw to joint these faces. Track saws aren't cheap, especially this Festool one, but I stand by the fact that they are such a game changer of a tool. They allow you to do jointing cuts like this, cut straight things at angles, cut down big pieces of plywood, way safer than on a little job site table saw. Might not be in a beginner's budget, but definitely would recommend getting one of these at some point in the beginning of your woodworking journey. I'll have a link for this one in the description, as well as links for all the other tools I used in this project. So these are the two edges that I ran through the track saw, and check it out. Boom, perfect mating face, ready for glue up. So this is where the desk is gonna go. I have one of these Lagoon table mounts so it can swivel out of the way. And as you can see, it's a little too big at the moment. We're gonna have the 3D printer right here. Also, can we just take a second and admire Eden's beautiful upholstered cushions? This is so comfy. I'm so stoked to like work here. All right, anyways. So this is definitely too long. I think at maximum, it should be the length of the cushion. I can cut it down and then retest it, so I might err on the side of bigger. I think this bench is like 31 inches wide. All right, here is the trimmed desk. Oh, this is sweet. The 3D printer cabinet will be right here. I'm essentially gonna have a wall next to my head, so it's not gonna hit that. And let's say I wanna get out. I can rotate this out, get out nice and easy. That goes in, and we still have the whole alleyway that we can walk. You bring it out, rotate around. Easy to come in. Boom. All right, let's start finishing. So before I finish sanding, there's a couple big knot holes that I want to fill with clear epoxy resin. For this, I'm using TotalBoat high performance epoxy resin. This stuff is super easy to use, especially with the calibrated pumps. It dries clear and it cures relatively fast, so it is perfect for filling small knot holes like these, especially if you only need a little bit of epoxy. TotalBoat is also the sponsor for this video, so check out the link in the description for a discount. So I got this sanded up to 220 grit, and before I add finish, there is one more detail that I want to add. This is something that I've never tried before, and if I can pull it off, this is gonna look so cool. So I'm gonna line my track saw along the edge, but set it out by about 1/8 of an inch. Then I'm gonna take my track saw and set it to 45 degrees so I can make an undercut. I've never done an undercut edge before, but they look so cool, so I hope this works. Woo, that looks awesome. Proper preparation makes perfect, or however the saying goes. Now I just gotta do it 3 more times. Check that out. I'm gonna finish the desk with TotalBoat Halcyon Clear. This is our go-to clear varnish for the van build because it is marine grade, super rugged, and easy to apply. One thing I love about Halcyon is its low VOC. So on a cold fall day like today, I can apply it inside without getting sick from fumes. I'm going to do a few build-up coats of gloss, followed by a final 1 or 2 coats of satin. I just love a satin finish. It is going to look so good. Let's finish this thing. Now you might be thinking that the title of this video is clickbait. Am I seriously saying that this simple table is my dream desk? This simple table made from a pallet with no LEDs, no hidden outlets. It's just strips of wood glued together. This is my dream desk? But to me, this is not just a desk. As we're about to embark on this van journey and change our entire lives, this is a reminder of what allowed me to turn YouTube into a full-time career. One of my first videos that blew up and really legitimized this channel was turning a free pallet into a $550 desk, a very similar design as this one, and I never made one of those desks for myself. This is a reminder of how far I've come, how success can really come from the most unexpected places. But perhaps more importantly, ever since I started making YouTube videos, the setting of where I worked was so important. You know, I've set up a pretty nice home studio, but the longer I work in there, the more I feel myself drawn to go edit in a local cafe. And this desk in our van that we'll be using to travel around North America will truly allow me to work from anywhere. In case you're wondering, it's currently October 21st. We're moving out of our apartment in 10 days. And as I'm sitting here in my puffy jacket and hat, looking out on a gloomy gray Ontario fall day, I am so excited to edit a video on this thing sitting on the beaches of California. That's the motivation right now, baby. If you would like to see what I'm up to behind the scenes, you can gain exclusive access to the behind the scenes Instagram page and Discord community by supporting this channel on Patreon. I would like to give a special thank you to my top supporter on Patreon, my mom, Kathy Kurt. Thanks, Mom. I love you. The next time you see me, I'll be living in here. Pretty crazy. If you're still watching, then give yourself a pat on the back because congratulations, you made it through a marathon of pallet woodworking. I really am so grateful if you watched this entire video. And if you did make it to the end, comment blueberries below so that I know you made it to the real end of the video. Actually, no, the word is pineapple. Pineapple is the word to tell me that you made it to the end. Nope, this is the end. The word is yucca. Final answer, YUCCA, in honor of beautiful Joshua Tree National Park. Okay, bye. Thanks for watching.